Committee for the year 2021. Welcome to the January 24th, 2022 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. The meeting format is hybrid. Quorum is physically present at the HART Administrative Office, 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and the rest of the board members are participating via communication media technology. Please look at the screens of your devices, and an image of the flag is displayed. Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Jackson, will you please take a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Committee Member Kemp?
Here.
Committee Member Knight? Committee Member Overman?
Here.
Committee Member Schisler?
Here.
Committee Chair Williams?
Here.
Thank you. You do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The rules for participation and roles and responsibilities for the committee are provided in the packet. Next, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have anyone pre-registered for public comment this morning?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This concludes the public input section of the meeting. And our first order of business is election of chair and vice chair for calendar year 2022. Ms. Mandel, General Counsel, will lead us through this process.
And thank you. I did want to note that it's my understanding that the constitution of this board will not be changing at the February meeting. So per our rules, we'll go ahead and make our selections as of now, but I still will ask for that to be reaffirmed at our next meeting, just because it's kind of the next year of us having the meetings. We'll go ahead and call for nominations for chair of the Finance and Audit Committee.
I'd like to nominate Councilman Schisler.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, I would ask for a roll call vote to appoint Councilmember Schisler as the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Member Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Member Williams?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. But now I'll go ahead and ask for nominations for vice chair of the Finance and Audit Committee.
I would like to nominate Melanie, Committee Member Melanie Williams.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, I'll go ahead and ask for a roll call vote to affirm Melanie Williams as the Finance and Audit Committee Vice Chairman.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Member Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now we should turn that over to Chair Schisler, take over for the meeting.
Thank you. The next is the approval of the minutes. In Section 4 of the packet, you will see the minutes from the Joint Strategic Planning, External Relations, Operations, Safety, Finance, and Audit Committee hybrid meeting from November 15th, 2021. If everybody's had an opportunity to read these, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, staff, will you please take a roll call vote?
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Chair Williams?
Yes.
Committee Member, thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Okay, next order of business is we have a presentation from the HART Strategic Financial Advisory Services. Amanda Vandergrift is here from Infra Strategies to present HART's Strategic Financial Advisory Services. The slides will also be displayed on the screens. Welcome. Mr. Grant, if you have any comment?
Yes, first, congratulations, Director Schisler,
Thank
on
you.
your new appointment. And I have to not call you Madam Chair, so I'll call you Sir Chair. I guess I have to work on that. So I'm very happy today to be here before you to hear the presentation from Amanda and Infra Strategies. As you're aware, the board approved our solicitation and hiring of Infra Strategies to help us develop a 30-year financial model. When I got here, that was one of the things that I talked to you about, Director Schisler, that HART did not have a financial model and we didn't budget beyond 1-year increments. So with the work that Infra Strategy has done, the end of this process, we'll have a 30-year model which will give us the ability to go in, test scenarios, and understand the impacts of investments today and how they will impact our financial situation in the future. So very excited about this opportunity and for you to hear some of the work that has been done as well as the next steps that we'd like to consider. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Amanda for the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. LeGrand. The next slide. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So today I'd like to talk through the key task areas that we have been working on over the past 6 months, beginning in May of 2021. Look at the key deliverable, which is the financial model, which can be used by HART for both short and long-term financial planning, some key findings that we found using the baseline model, and some recommended financial strategies. And we'll talk a little bit as well. We finished our work right before the infrastructure bill passed. So the model needs to be updated to include the infrastructure bill. We'll talk more about that in a moment. So the first 6 tasks that we worked on were completed between May and the first week of November, beginning with task 1 through 6. The key deliverable, the baseline financial model for the HART system. We also did a funding and financing options review and recommended several shortlisted sources to advance for further consideration. We used the model to test some of these options. And as a key task, we looked at the Tampa streetcar extension HART share that was submitted to FTA as part of the 2020 ratings package, and HART's financial capacity to deliver that project today. We were wrapping everything up at the end of October, the first week of November. A week later, after we were finished with the model, the infrastructure bill passed. So we'd like to talk a little more with you about updating the model, which you'll see on the right side, some proposed additional tasks. Updating the model with the infrastructure bill impacts, which are very positive impacts for HART and for the modeling effort. We also want to do a model training session with HART staff so we can hand the model over so it can be used in the future by HART for short and long range financial planning, and present our final findings to this committee. Task 1, we looked at a very detailed review of your existing plans and your existing financial materials. We used this as the foundation to develop the model and to develop projections into the future of your capital and your operating costs and revenues. This is just one page of 5 of all of the documents that we reviewed as part of Task 1, which was submitted to HART back in June of last year. Then we took the baseline financial model and we developed several inputs into the model from all of that all the financial materials from Task 1, including your existing and historic capital and operating costs and revenues. We took that and looked at your growth rates, your historic growth rates, and we projected into the future what that would look like. We also included several of your planned projects and initiatives, and included capital and operating cost estimates as well, phasing assumptions, and projected what that would look like into the future. On the revenue side, we included federal sources, both existing and potential future sources in the model, and state funding, and then local sources. So those are all driven by several input assumptions, all that can change the model. Those all go into the model as inputs, and the model produces several very useful outputs for HART. one of the key outputs is your estimated annual cash flow needs over time, both in the short and the long term on the capital and the operating side. Another key output is a look at your funding gap on the program level, and then what does that look like on the project level? You can use the model to test different financial strategies to fill the funding gaps. And you can also use the model to develop federal grant strategies, particularly through the CIG, Capital Investment Grant Program, as well as other discretionary competitive grants that are available through this infrastructure bill and beyond. Finally, you can use the model to test the impact of financing tools. So issuing bonds or potentially going for federal financing tools like TIFIA. The first scenario we developed with the model was a look at your unconstrained capital and operating program for the next 30 years. As a foundation, we included your existing HART service and what projected into the next 30 years, what it would cost to operate, maintain, and develop and continue a similar capital budget as you currently do into the future. On top of that, we added HART's share of the TICO streetcar extension, both the capital and operating sources, that was attributed to HART in the FTA submission in 2020. On top of that, we have the funded TDP projects. Those were identified in the 2030 Transit Development Plan update. Those are listed here in 4 different categories. And finally, there's a long list of unfunded projects included in this, including frequency improvements, innovative solutions, capital projects, transit centers, all the way to your fixed guideway projects that have been planned in the region, including your rail and your BRT projects. All of that totals to an order of magnitude estimate of about $17.8 billion in capital and operating costs over the next 30 years. And we did develop several scenarios with the model, looking at subsets of these projects, different existing and future revenue streams that could be considered. A high-level preliminary finding I'd like to share with you today, with the understanding that the infrastructure bill was not included in this first modeling effort. At a high level, if you look at the model and you turn off every other project and you just have the existing HART service, capital and operating that we're projecting into the future, we are seeing a fiscal cliff in the near future. And we're defining fiscal cliff as the point in time in the future where your operating costs are higher than your operating revenue and you begin to operate at a deficit. This is primarily driven by the operating side of the equation. Your operating costs are higher than your operating revenue, and that is compounded by a higher operating cost growth than your operating revenue growth. Without a supplemental source of funding, we're looking at a fiscal cliff in the near future, and HART is not in the position today to increase service, undertake new capital projects, and that includes the HART TICO streetcar extension. We moved on into task 3, which was a funding and financing options review, and we looked at 71 different sources on the federal, state, local, and project-specific side. We reviewed all of these sources based on several criteria, including revenue potential, long-term stability, political support, and others. And we shortlisted 48 options for HART's consideration. On the federal level, you'll see several different funding sources that you have already submitted applications for and have been successful for in the past. The infrastructure bill also provides new opportunities, and I'll talk more about those in a moment. On the local level, we shortlisted the sales surtax as the primary funding source to match those federal grants and also to help you leverage financing tools. That was shortlisted as the primary source because it is the most common funding source used for transit across the country, and it scored the highest compared to others on revenue potential and long-term stability. We took this shortlist and we developed some high-level recommended financial strategies for HART moving forward, considering HART's existing services, of course, as the base of your financial strategy. Your existing sources need to continue into the future, and on top of that, we have the sales surtax increase as the primary source in our financial strategies. That would then be used as a critical match for federal grants, including the infrastructure bill's new grant programs. And it's also it's important to note that on the financing side, You do need a dedicated long-term revenue stream to back any bonds that are issued or to access TIFIA, which is a federal financing tool. We developed several scenarios in the model. We wrapped everything up in late October, early November, and about a week later, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act passed. And you'll hear this called the IIJA or the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. It's the federal infrastructure package that provided for surface transportation reauthorization for the next 5 years, as well as nearly $300 billion in above baseline spending, including $39 billion for transit. For HART, the biggest impact for HART and for this modeling effort is your guaranteed increase in FTA formula funds. So compared to 2021, looking at 2022, we see about a 30% increase in your FTA formula funds, and that will continue for the next 5 years, and you probably could expect that to steadily increase from then on. In addition, there's other opportunities like increased flex funds, which is your CMAQ, STBG, Transportation Alternatives Funds. You have an additional opportunity to compete for federal competitive grant programs over the next 5 years. The Low-No program received a major increase. And then there's new federal grant programs like ferry service, Low-No ferry service, revolutionizing transportation grants, safe streets, and more. And finally, if you're looking at a program of projects, the Capital Investment Grant Program received nearly double increase in potential funding, about $23 billion over the next 5 years. There's some changes to the Small Starts Grant Program that are beneficial for our modeling effort, and there's also the CIG, Capital Investment Grant, bundling provision that will allow sponsors to advance several projects through the program at one time. Now, it is very important, outside of your FTA formula funds, for me to mention that everything else will require you to compete for funds, and that requires a dedicated funding source. So as part of our additional tasks that we're proposing, we would like to run several new scenarios in the model, including looking at that existing conditions and projecting out where that fiscal cliff would be with the infrastructure bill included. We also want to look at the impacts of the infrastructure bill on HART's ability to potentially deliver a few additional projects. And then the final scenario, look at a sales surtax increase with the infrastructure bill included. So that's task 7. And then task 8, we would be doing a modeling training in person with specific HART staff so they can run the model in the future and use it for short and long-term financial planning. We would also be available to support with modeling support and modeling training as needed. And the final task would be wrapping everything up and presenting our final findings to this committee in task 9. Ms. LeGrand?
Well, thank you so much, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Chair to discuss.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for a good presentation. Any comments or questions by the committee members for staff? Commissioner Kemp.
I just want to say that I'm very pleased that we're having long-term financial modeling for the first time ever. I know that we actually were near that cliff several times in just my 5 years here. And I fretted over it and felt that people didn't understand how close to the edge we are. And so this is very needed, important as we go forward, I think, because we're looking at a lot of possible expansion. So that's all very good. And with that, I think this is definitely, I think this is what Commissioner Overman was even referring to in the first place, is even looking at whatever, where we could move if we had more resources to do so. So I'd like to move approval. And I think this was, I'll be very interested in seeing what results we come up with here.
I'll second that.
Well, hold off on that till we actually hit that as an action item, but I agree with you. Any other comments?
Other comments?
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
And thank you. Great report, great project. Looks like you're covering all the bases. Really excited to see this. curious about when this fiscal cliff gets here, given that I think we were actually there before the CARES Act funding came through, because we were already at the cliff level, whether we realized it or not. But I'm curious about, in preliminary findings, since you mentioned preliminary findings, what is that projected fiscal cliff, projected for the near future? And then two, what is your timeline for completing this report? We are in a time crunch for generating a strategy for funding HART long-term over the next 30 years, given the surtax is a key element of the local funding that's necessary for so much here. And while we do have the deficit that the amount that we have, the 17.8, the other unfunded projects, I think, is critically important, as well as recognizing that there's been at least some interest with the state updating its passenger rail study, that the local region is now considering moving forward on HART's priority project of negotiating with CSX to determine how to best move forward on passenger rail. And given that the infrastructure plan would assist in that, I'm very curious about what our timeline looks like, and if that's taken into consideration in the modeling, or is that something we're going to add in the future? But more importantly, what's our timeline, given that we have to go out to the public to tell them why it's important to fund, our transportation in February. So I'm curious what we will have to be able to show the citizens that are curious about what our needs are.
Thank you. So the first question on the fiscal cliff, and just keep in mind it's preliminary, and we now have the infrastructure bill, so this is not the date anymore. But we were looking at a date range between 2025 and 2026. I expect that now when we update the model with a 30% increase in your federal formula funds, for that to shift back several years. I'd like to come back to the committee with a definitive date with the infrastructure bill included. And as well as timing, we are hoping to get going on this as soon as possible. So the model's ready, it's developed, it's a tool on the shelf right now, and we just need to update it. So it would only take a few weeks to a month at longest to update that.
That's good news. Given, like I said, our first meeting is February 9th, and then the remaining meetings are at the end of February. So any additional funds for our existing structure, as well as the needs given our growth rates, because I think, as we look at our operating revenues and our expansion of this network at some point in time, respecting our growth rates is going to be an important part of projecting what those models evolve to. So, and I certainly want to make sure we get every penny we can from the federal government on transit. So, especially given the emphasis on fixed guideway. And I recognize the fixed guideway could be the streetcar, could be the ferry, and could be our passenger rail, of which we only have one at the moment. So that's why I was asking those questions. But those are going to be very critical to our growth and being able to meet our clients' needs. Our clients, who are our riders' needs, and having that information and the tools to be able to give numbers on a frequent, transparent basis would be fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I really like what I see here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. LeGrand?
Yes, thank you, Sir Chair. I'm going to get this right, believe me. So I just wanted to state on Amanda's behalf, and I also see the principal of her firm, Sharon Green, is also on the line, so thank you for dialing in, Sharon. She's on the West Coast, so it's super early for her, so thank you so much for being here with us. The reason why we're doing the financial model is so that HART, and when I say HART, I mean staff as well as the board, can use this as a tool for us to now look at our projects and prioritize how we want to move forward. That's the primary reason, so that as we go through our budgeting cycle, we're making decisions that we understand the impact of, and we're not just I don't want to imply that we weren't taking the time to understand what our decisions were. However, we didn't have the tools to really be able to tell you in a financial way what are the impacts of our decisions that we're making today on our future case. So that's really the reason, the impetus behind this work effort. As far as the fiscal cliff, and I could see Amanda was uncomfortable responding to that question, so I appreciate you giving an answer. But what we want to be able to do is come back and give you the specific information. We don't want to throw information out there that is not connected to our reality. Since we do have this 30% increase, we need to understand what that looks like and come back with a definitive year. As Amanda said, initially it looked like it was 2026. But, you know, how far out can we take it before there is a real issue? And then what decisions do we make today in our current state to ensure that we push that back as far as we possibly can? And then when additional funding becomes available, we're even in a way better position. So that's really what our intention is here, is to figure out how we do more with what we have as we prepare to get more, but recognizing that we still have to make decisions today for our customers today. So I just wanted to share that with you so you understand what we're working on behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Amanda, if I may, unless there's any other comments, my comments would be thank you very much. Whenever we make a decision, we have to look, not today, not tomorrow, but 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And a model that allows us to go out 30 is going to be very, very good. I, too, was concerned about the cliff. I know at budget time, I was rattling the cages and saying we had a $15 million surplus, or, reserve surplus. And considering we got $29 million from COVID, from CARES last year, that you do the math, and we were underwater significantly at that point. Furthermore, I got one question for you. If the planets were to align, how much would the 30% come close to on the IIJA? Was that you're talking about? The
Yes.
potential 30% increase? What are we looking at? Give me, in billions of dollars, $500 million, $1 million, $2 million, any guesses?
I'd have to look at the
Okay.
model, but you had around $9 million a year, and it's going to increase by 30%.
By 30% off of that.
And so that will, it increases dramatically in the first year, and then there's a steady increase for the next 5 years. There's a lot of unknowns after 5 years, right? Because we need surface transportation reauthorization to have more clarity. There's usually a small bump every
Right.
time surface transportation reauthorization occurs, unless
Okay.
there's continuing resolutions. So we're projecting in the model, those 5 years are more clear, right? Because we have numbers on what the increases will be. And then we're going to make an assumption based on historic figures that it's going to grow at a steady rate from then on.
Okay.
But we can come back to you in a month, and show you exactly what the impact is.
Okay, then I have 2 quick questions about the mechanics of the model. Who owns the model? Will HART own the model?
So, yes, the InfraStrategies is developing the model that will be turned over to HART.
Okay.
They're going to train HART staff in the finance department on how to use the model, how to update it, how to run scenarios. And then if we need additional assistance, what their InfraStrategies is going to be available to talk to us and help us through it. But the first training session will be in person. They will be here and train a couple of people in our department on how to actually use the model. So it will be hours, and we'll be able to
good.
use it and know how to, update it.
And I know I'm preaching to the choir on this, but the model's only as good as the inputs. And
Exactly.
the assumptions that are made in it. So, I mean, it can be set up perfectly, but if we don't maintain it, and, even if you may end up with a dedicated individual doing nothing but that, who going down the future. So, the more people that get to play with that model, the better backup we'll have, and so forth. So I know I don't need to say it, but we keep it accurate, and we'll be able to use it for years and years to come. So thank you very much for your presentation. And no other further questions, we'll move forward. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the committee action items. Next on the agenda are the committee action items for review by the committee to form a recommendation for approval by the full board of directors. Item 6A is for the committee to form a recommendation to the HART Board of Directors to authorize the CEO to award a sole source contract to InfraStrategy LLC to provide strategic financial advisory services for a total not to exceed of $70,280. In your package, you have a write-up and a proposed resolution in support of this item. Do committee members have any comments or questions for staff?
I'll move approval again.
Okay, we have a motion made by committee member Kemp. Do we have a second? Second by Melanie Williams. Any questions on comments? We have a motion and a second. Can we have staff vote? Or do staff want to vote, or do we do it all at once? Go ahead.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Knight?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Committee Member Overman?
Yes,
Committee Chair Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Member Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward, next action item is 6B, is for the committee to form a recommendation to the HART Board of Directors to authorize the Chief Executive Officer to modify the existing contract with Dynamic Security for security guard services to add $92,786.40, increasing the total not to exceed amount from $2,619,926,000 to $2,712,712.40. In your package, you have a write-up and a proposed resolution in support of this item. Do committee members have any questions of staff or comments?
I
Ms. LeGrand?
stated no comments, but if you're open, I'll share a little bit on why we're
Please.
doing this.
Please.
So right now, we have a security contract, and you'll see that the next action item 6C is also related to security services. Right now, we have a contract that's under the state procurement, and it didn't really provide us with enough security coverage for all of our facilities. So for example, we didn't have a dedicated security officer for this building. If you've noticed over the last couple of months, we do have a security officer who sits out front when we have our committee meetings, but we don't have a security officer here for our regular, daily service for our employees. It's important to us to create an environment, I believe you mentioned this, Councilman Schisler, earlier, where our employees feel safe, and we need to make sure that we have coverage throughout the system as well as at our specific facilities and administrative buildings. So this item 6B is to add additional budget so that we can get more security coverage at our facilities currently. And then I'll just mention 6C, even though we're not there yet, that's to allow us to procure on a HART contract for security services. Since we're on the state procurement plan, it works because you can get a contractor or vendor quickly, but we can't specify, or we were unable to specify what we'd like to see in the contract. So those are the two reasons, and I can go into more detail when we get to 6C. But for 6B, it's really for more funding so we can have full-time coverage here. I would say it's the biggest bite for 7th Avenue, and then as well as adding some additional security coverage throughout the system.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Move approval?
Oh, okay, so we have a motion to approve to recommend to the Board of Directors to authorize the Chief Executive Officer to modify the existing contract with Dynamic Security for security guard services to add $92,786.40, increasing the total not to exceed to $2,712,712.40, and advancing this item to the full HART Board of Directors on February 7th regular board meeting. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion, a second. Danielle, call the vote.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Knight?
Yes,
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler,
Yes.
Committee Member Williams. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, committee members. Okay, next action item is 6C. Staff requests authorization to proceed with solicitation that would result in a contract to deploy armed security officers hired for protection of HART employees, the general public, and property. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Security guard service will be provided at Net Park, Marion Transit Center, 21st Avenue Administration Facility Lobby, 21st Avenue Operations and Maintenance Facility, front and back gates, University Area Traffic Transit Center, and the E-Board Administrative Office. The next steps indicate that upon conclusion of the solicitation process, the contract award will be presented to the Finance and Audit Committee on May 17, 2022, and if recommended by the committee, to the full board on June 6, 2022. Do committee members have any comments or questions for staff?
Move approval.
Second.
I think Ms. LeGrand wanted to have some additional commentary on this.
Yes,
Thank
so
you.
for this one, and I think Danielle may have the details up, but for this one, again, what we want to do is have the contract directly between HART and the security provider. And then that way, we can specify what we'd like them to do during their security time. So I'll give you an example. You may, if you go to 21st Street, you may see that we have a security officer in a booth. The way the contract is written now, it doesn't allow them to get out of the booth and, stop people or circulate. So we'd want to be able to, specify what we would like for all of our security officers, from if they're in the booth, if there's someone driving around through the system, if they're posted here, and this will give us more flexibility to specify. On the state contract, we have to go with what the state had in their procurement document.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, I believe, to recommend the HART Board of Directors authorize staff to proceed with the solicitation for procurement of a contract for security guard services at HART facilities. Is there a second?
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry, second by Commissioner Kemp. Staff will take the vote by name and announce.
Committee Member Kemp,
Yes.
Committee Member Knight,
Yes.
Committee Member Overman,
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler,
Yes.
Committee Member Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, action item 6D is to form a recommendation for the HART Board of Directors to authorize staff to proceed with a solicitation for procurement of a chiller replacement for the HART Operations and Maintenance Facility located at 4303 East 21st Avenue. Detailed write-up of the contract overview and a proposed resolution are included in your packets. This solicitation is for a contract that will supply labor, materials, equipment to remove and replace the existing McQuaid chiller, including proper disposal of existing units at Operations and Maintenance Facility located at 4305 East 21st. After the solicitation process is concluded, staff will present the contract award information to Finance and Audit Committee on April 18, 22, for a full Board of Directors on May 2nd, 2022. Do the committee members have any comments or questions for staff?
I have a question.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Overman.
Thank you. I have a quick, we are attempting to receive funding for upgrading and rebuilding our maintenance facility. If this is purchased, will it be able to be utilized should that funding come through?
So when we rebuild the maintenance facility, the new facility will come with, chillers and different support features for the new facility. So really what we're doing here with this ask of, I believe it's $140,000 or $150,000, is to replace the current chiller with a new one. The chiller we currently had was purchased in 2000, and it has a useful life of 11 years. It's 2022. So it has far exceeded its useful life, and really what we're looking to do is bring in a chiller now that can help us with our current environment. And recognizing as we go through the process of building a new heavy maintenance facility, It's going to take us several years to go from finishing the planning phase, getting through the whole project development phase, and building a new facility. So this is definitely an investment that we need to make now. And in the future, specifically to your question, the new facility will come with a new chiller. And if there's anything that we have currently that we can utilize in the new facility, we'll definitely do that as well.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Committee member, please proceed.
Question.
Yes. You're recognized.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're recognized. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello to all. Again, I have a question also on that maintenance facility. Is there another route we can go instead of $150,000 on a building that's slated to be torn down, or possibly is there another? I guess that's a lot of money just to put in one, and I understand with the people and what it would do, but can we look at another route instead of putting that much in that building?
So I will ask Scott Drainville to respond, but I just want to point out that this project is being funded by a 5339 grant that we get from the federal government. Ms. Kirk is asking to be recognized, so I'll let her step up before Mr. Drainville. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeGrand. Thank you, Ms. LeGrand, and to the board members, to the chair and other board members. We had this conversation last week. We know that if we use federal dollars and does not exceed its useful life before we replace it, that we may have an obligation to FTA. So we are in discussions. We know we have to maintain this building for the safety and security and comfort of our employees. But at the same time, we are monitoring and tracking anything we invest in that we know that's going to be replaced, and then have that conversation with FTA.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Does that answer your question, Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Okay, I believe we have you second, right? Okay. We have a motion to second. Staff, take a
Can
vote.
I just ask one question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It would just seem like a chiller system would be a thing that would be transferable as long as we built a new building on the same site, but that's not true?
It would have to be, it would be able to accommodate the size of the building. We're not that close with the new design to know exactly what size and what capacity of chiller we'd need for a new facility. But anything, we are, as Ms. Kirk mentioned, and I stated earlier, anything that we invest in today, we're mindful of, it needs to be able to last its useful life if we have federal dollars in it. And again, a part of our assessment, finishing up the planning phase for the new facility, is working with, I would call it a gap analysis. What are the resources that have been invested that we need to keep in play, if you will, as we transition forward, and how does that look? So we'll look at all of those.
Danielle, we have a motion to second. Please proceed.
Yes, I apologize, Committee Chair. Who seconded the item?
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp, I thought made the motion.
I did make the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner
Overman?
Overman seconded. I apologize.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
you're right.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Knight?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Member Williams?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, next item of consideration is item 6E. Recommend that the HART Board of Directors authorize staff to proceed with a solicitation for procurement of a multi-year operation and maintenance services at the HART compressed natural gas CNG filling station, and purchase and installation of a third CNG dual compressor system. This solicitation, resulting contract, will provide support to operate, inspect, and maintain the CNG filling station located at 4305 East 21st Avenue, and to purchase and install a third CNG dual compressor system to improve fueling efficiency. The next step will be to present the contract award information to the Finance and Audit Committee on May 16th, 2022, and depending advancement from the committee, present contract award recommendation to the full Board of Directors on June 6, 2025. Do committee members have any comments or questions for staff? Not seeing any. Ms. LeGrand, do you have any commentary?
So yes, as we are aware that we just purchased 16 new CNG vehicles. We have 2 stations right now for fueling, and we need this third one so that we can get our vehicles, fueled as quickly as possible, get them back into service. In addition, we're working we shared with you, I want to say maybe it was March of last year, with our fleet replacement plan, and we're looking to replace all of our diesel with CNG, and then eventually, transition to electric buses if the infrastructure is available throughout the county. So a part of our fleet replacement plan right now is focused on CNG vehicles, and we feel like this investment will really help us to be able to be more efficient with the way we turn our vehicles and get them back out.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second?
Second by motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Ms. Williams. We have motion, second. Staff will take a vote.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Knight?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Member Williams?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Last action item in today's agenda is 6F, to recommend the HART Board of Directors authorize the Chief Executive Officer to modify the current contract number VC 0000886 for general litigation and personal injury legal services with Dean Ringers, Morgan and Lawton, PA of Orlando, Florida, and increase the contract value from $80,000 to an amount not to exceed contract value of $160,000. This contract is to assist the legal department in providing representation of general litigation, personal injury, and property damage litigation claims on behalf of the authority. The contract was awarded to Dean Ringers, Morgan, and Lawton, PA on May 12, 2021, for a not to exceed amount of $80,000, representing following a request for qualification solicitation. A detailed write-up with the contract overview and a proposed resolution are included in your packets. Do committee members have any questions for staff? Any comment from Ms. LeGrand?
Yeah, so we are currently working with this law firm. They're helping us with the case because of the level of effort that was needed in this case, in their current caseload. They're about to hit their $80,000 limit. So what we wanted to do was to increase their budget for a not to exceed of $160,000 so that we don't have to have any stoppage of their work effort that they're currently working on. And we don't anticipate them going beyond the additional $80,000. It's just that the current case that they're working on with us required a little more of their time to go through the process and help us to come out ahead.
Ms. Williams?
Ms. LeGrand, do you have is this budgeted for us to move from $80,000 to $160,000? Is that forecasted in our budget?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We were able to, Ms. Kirk, if you can approach as far as the budgeting process.
Thank you.
Mr. Grant, and to board members, yes, this is budgeted, but of course, any future expenses beyond 2022 will have to come back to the board for the annual appropriation.
Right, so it's in our current fiscal '22 budget.
Thank you. No
You're welcome.
no further
Any
questions.
further
I'd like to
questions?
move approval.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Kent. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Ms. Williams seconded. Staff, take a vote, please.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Knight?
Yes.
Committee Member Overman?
Yes.
Committee Chair Schisler?
Yes.
Committee Member Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our regular business for today. Is there any old business? Seeing none, is there any new business to be brought before the committee? Seeing none, thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned.